So the exhaust. I spoke briefly about this, I think last episode, the one before, about what I was going to do. So I've done a bit of research. I've decided to try and make, well, not try, I'm going to make, well, Darren and I are going to make an exhaust system out of existing parts that are readily available. So what I'm using, this is a muffler off an XY GT. These are made by a company down in Melbourne called Settlement Road Exhaust. And these are made as a direct replacement, and we're just going to modify it a bit. So they supply it with a slip joint, so a standard exhaust, you know, with your slots in it. The other pipe goes in with a clamp. I'd prefer not to have that set up because they tend to leak and they're not very stable. So I've bought some flanges locally from Rapid Exhaust, and what we're going to do now is we're going to mount the flange on the front of the muffler like that. So I'll probably make this a bit shorter, so that would effectively get welded on there and welded on there, and then when we come off our headers, that'll bolt on with a gasket. Now it's all about long term keeping the leaks out, so it's got a proper exhaust gasket on it. That'll bolt together, and that'll go to the headers at the front. And then I've bought a couple of mandrel bends that will enable us to step that over to get to where we need to be, and I'll show you that as we do it, obviously. And then at the back, once again, they had a slip joint that would then take you to your tailpipe. So we've cut that off, and I had some pipes here already with a couple of bends in them, so I'm going to put that on there. Now the reason I'm doing that is I'm going up to a 2 1/4 inch tailpipe. The XYGT and the Phase 3 both had 2 inch. So these are 2 1/4. And then I found these online. So these are going to be the tailpipes, so they'll go outside the spring, and they're from Redback Exhaust. They were very cost effective. They're a nice piece, mandrel bent, so we don't mandrel as in they do the bend and you don't end up like that, losing part of the size of the pipe. So mandrel bend, and then once again I've got somewhere 2 1/4 inch flanges that'll go on the back of that, so we'll have a flange front and back of the muffler. So that's what we're up to. The reason I'm doing that is it's very cost effective. So far I'm into this for a bit under $1,000. So, you know, if you're doing it at home, your time's your own. So I'll have an exhaust system for like $1,000. I bought these online. So these are your standard, you know, pretty much XW all the way through to XC, I would think, sedan. We've got to modify them to go on the van because the floor pan is different, but we're going to be able to use those, but rather than having a clamp where that would normally go on there where your clamp goes, we'll cut this off and make it something so it bolts on, just make it a little bit more sturdy. I found those. I bought one pair for some ridiculously low price, like 20 bucks, and on eBay, and I thought I'll use them to cut up and make my templates, and then if I buy the more expensive ones you see in all the GT shops and stuff, I'm really happy with the quality. They were 20 bucks a pair plus freight, so I ordered another set. So we'll have one at the back of the muffler and then one on the tailpipe. So I'll show you all that as it happens. But in the meantime, we'll start chopping things up, do a few welds, and then I'll show you what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. I always find it difficult when we're doing these sorts of jobs to pick the camera up enough times, but I mean, there's not much good showing you cutting a bit of pipe and tacking a bit of pipe, but that's pretty much what we've been doing. So we'd previously removed the pieces that were on the back of those headers, and I've done that because they went to 2 1/4 and I wanted 2 1/2. So we've gone 2 1/2 now, and we've used a couple of mandrel bends. It's interesting that this pipe here is longer than the other side, and that's the way they came. So We've just had to put a little bit of extra there, but trying to keep it all nice and symmetrical. And those factory mufflers sit nicely to the floor, so they're XY ones, but the floors obviously are very similar. And I'm happy with the way the height is from the side when you come in, so our mufflers are up above our header pipes, and then the back mufflers go all the way up, so really happy with the way that's coming together. So at the moment we're just tacking it all with MIG, and once it all comes off I'll TIG weld all that up on the bench. The hangers have worked out good as well. So the only thing we found with these cheap ones is on that bracket it should have a little lip to hold the clamp on. Now we're not going to actually clamp them so it doesn't affect us, but if you bought them you would need to add a little bit extra to this edge out here, because there's normally a little lip there on the factory ones. So if we come around the back, the clamp is up in there, or the hanger I should say. It's not a clamp, I was talking about clamps, but it's a hanger. So that's the two. We've been able to cut this one off, bend it over, and then bolt it up to the factory points on the floor. And I've chosen, it's got a hose clamp on there now, but I've chosen to weld this bracket here to that muffler pipe. So when we take it off, we'll just undo this bolt and it'll all come off in one piece. And then up at the back here, and I'll just turn some light on. There we go. So at the back, same hanger up in behind, but the top cut off it, and I'll show you that one in a minute, and then some new holes put in it, and then we've used a big nutsert, which I think was an 8mm, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to weld that onto the pipe, and it'll be part of the tailpipe then. So those tailpipes worked out really good. And then the angle out here, I'm happy with that as well. So it's sort of, these will get like a chrome tip but cut on the, I don't know, I don't think they're quite 45 on the GT. So that's all working pretty good. The nutsert gun, I had to borrow one from the neighbour, so he's got this style. So that's the size it goes in, and we had to be creative. What'd you do with the drill? So Darren's here helping me, so we just had to make a drill bit to go in our step drill, because I've had that step drill about 30 years, but it's not a 1/2 inch chuck, it's a smaller chuck, so we had to get a step drill, cut it down, you know, do a few pilot holes and stuff. So being able to do that, it would be difficult if you didn't have the tools, but it enables us to have a bolt-on hanger then similar to what the factory was, because the factory one is on the, from the factory the exhaust on this was inside the spring, and the holes are actually up there. It's where the hanger was. But as most things with Ford, when it went through the production line, if it didn't have a twin system, it didn't get two here as well. So if you go inside the spring, it'd be quite simple to put some nutserts in there. Righto, I'll get that bracket off the rear here, because we're about to set the other side up. So from the exhaust itself point of view, we spoke about adding this bit of pipe on. So you can see there I've got a bit of a gap to make up with the MIG, and we've got our bracket there, and that utilises the full tailpipe that I got from online, because the reason this looks so long is a panel van is the same length as a wagon and a Fairlane. So because the mufflers are off a sedan, we needed an extra 100mm in here to get enough length to get our clearance over the diff properly. But all in all, I'm happy the way it's coming along, utilising off-the-shelf parts. Righto, so we're making really good progress here, but we've just hit a bit of a snag because this pipe went in, it's basically all the way in, just needs a couple of tacks on that back bracket. So we set the other tailpipe in and we've got an issue, or I've got an issue, and the issue is my OCD. There's a couple of variations in the bend. So at the moment this one here is running pretty much straight with the rail. This one over here is running downhill. So Darren and I have just made the decision. We're going to put a couple of little cuts in, bend it around, because I'm looking for the pipes to sit straight like that, and at the same time coming out through here correctly. So we're just going to have to make some changes to this left hand side one to make it work effectively. Righto, so that tailpipe, we ended up cutting it in 3 places, here, here and here, and took us quite some time to manoeuvre that around to get it to mirror image. So I think it was still quicker than having, if I had have bought mandrel bends and made the whole thing, because that's how I would do like our full show cars. And I think this was still okay. And I mean, if it was not because of my head, you could have put this one on, but one would be sitting different to the other. And because I've taken out this spare wheel compartment, I'm going to put a spare wheel up high. I couldn't live with myself to leave it like that. So I'll now weld those up and linish them so they all match. And then I've just got to trim these off, get my heights right on the back here, and work out and put some chrome tips on there. So that sort of rounds off the tailpipes besides welding them all up. The next thing to do is the equalizer pipe at the front. So we're using a bit of 2-inch there, and I bought some flanges to go on there as well for the 2-inch pipe. So that's the next job, so we'll get on with that. Righto, so being a balance pipe, we've just got a couple of holes there to be able to balance the pressure, give it a bit nicer sound. Bowl will go out, come out all right. One, just pleased by the look of it.
Right there?
I think so. You square and centre and everything. Just put a couple on it and then So all that, the filming I did with Darren with making that Equalizer pipe, obviously I didn't check my volumes and stuff, and I didn't have any commentary on that. So we pretty much made that, cut these in the drill press. So this is 2 inch, this is 2.5. So, you know, we ran the 2.5 inch hole saw through the pipe to get it to slide on. A little bit complicated because it's on the angle to get that to work, but really just a matter of doing that. So when this unbolts now, this one will unbolt here, and then these will come off. My headers will come off as separate pipes, and then I'll be able to weld up. I don't know if I'll MIG or TIG that, but I'll TIG all these. Really happy with the way it presents. It's nice and square, everything runs to everything. It's nice and solid. Really good ground clearance. So all in all, really happy the way that's all come out. Just got a whole lot of work to do on the bench now with the TIG and linish things up, and then I'll work out what I'm going to do about a coating for it all. Right, so I've got that off the car now, in the process of welding everything up. So I'm doing it all with TIG. We've been able to put it back together with fairly tight tolerances. So in areas like this, probably made a little bit of a mistake. I should have cleaned up some of this material before I tacked it together, but you know, you do these things. So you can see there, that one's butt welded on. This one here, I've TIGged that up. So I'm using a fair bit of filler wire just to make sure there's plenty of strength in it. And then on the inside, you can see here where we've put that over. Now, that one there is really good because it's very even and not much of a gap, and it welds up really nicely. On the other end, a little bit harder to do because we were moving things around, so a bit more of a gap. And on some of one of the other ones, a tailpipe I did, there was, you know, it was probably in about 3 mil. So it's just a little bit more heat and a little bit harder to weld up, but still possible to do. I'll run just a flapper disc over these to make sure there's nothing holding things out. And then I decided just to TIG these as well. Once again, you know, probably should have taken the zinc or CAD plating off of those, but I've just been using a wire wheel on the drill like that, just to run over that. Try and get as much as I can off. Some of the pipes that came pre-made are aluminium coated, which is a bit frustrating because it doesn't weld as nice, but because of the impurities. But I'm working my way through. You can see this one here as well, there's a bit of a gap in this one, but I've been able to weld that up with the TIG. I like the TIG because you know you're getting really good penetration. So the tailpipes, righto, so answered the phone, back to the job. Tailpipes, so I had to weld these up because they weren't close enough for me, so I've TIGged them up and then linished them up, and they're going to get painted, so like with a VHT high temp paint. And these ones here, you can see there just where I've linished that up now. Those actually have a gasket on them like this. You get the right size one, so you know it's a proper crushable exhaust gasket will go on there, so that'll seal them up nice. A couple of different sizes somewhere, but yeah, that'll all be sweet. So just get back on the TIG, get them all done, and then linish them up so I can think about probably with these, I'll clean these up with some thinners or something similar and a bit of Scotch-Brite just to make sure I've got no oils and stuff, so when I put my coating on it, it won't peel off. Right, I nearly got this exhaust sorted. So it's been a couple of days on the weekend messing about. So I've welded up all the flanges, welded all these. Can't remember where we got to with the last video, but it was pretty much all tacked together, I think. So what I'm doing now, or Steve and I are doing, we've just been sanding with some 120, just on a soft pad so that it goes around the round edges. And I'm doing that because most of this is aluminium coated. These here I think might be coated as well. So I'm going to paint it with a VHT high temp paint. So if I had a sandblaster, I'd probably give it a quick blast, but I don't have one. So I'm just working my way through making them nice and tidy. The tailpipes, this one was the one that fitted okay. This one is the one I've welded up now, so I've sanded it up. We'll give it a quick Scotch-Brite. And what I've got sitting here now, this is the tailpipes I'm going to use, or the tip. So it slides onto the 2 1/4. And it goes out to 2 1/2, and having that rounded end is very similar to what the XCs had with a standard twin system, but I don't think they were quite that big. So we're in the process now of getting it all ready to go. I'm going to bolt it all back on because I've got a little bit of work to do to get these to all sit exactly the same on the back bumper. So I just need to make sure my bumper's right. Put all this back on, and I've got a little bit of adjustment to do that I can get away with here with some little spaces, or I might just need to move the bracket on the chassis rail. So I'm going to do that this morning so that we can get a nice video of it, and then we'll get it back off and put a coat of paint on it. Righto, so I've put all that back on. Got everything to sort of line up. I've got some gaskets I've got to trim that I didn't sort of look at and realise, so I'll do that when it comes off this time. So I've got myself a nice gap here into the spring, which we'll see underneath in a minute, but I'm very happy with the way they sort of look. You know, they look XC, they look like sort of late 70s. Because it's all sort of tucked up, you don't see a lot from the side. So even though they're only a short tip, you're not sort of going to see a real lot down low. Sort of happy with the way that's come out. So I'm not going to weld them on yet, and there's a couple of reasons for that, but the main one is the fact that this is all going to be green, and these will be obviously polished stainless. So I've got the option whether I want to come a bit further before I weld them on. I wouldn't go any further back, because if I go too far back, you'll end up with the black coming up the bumper. So I'll leave them. We'll get everything else painted so it can go into storage while we get back onto bodywork and stuff. And I've sort of got that bumper 99%, but once again, once we do a little bit of adjustment, I need to have a little bit of room left to be able to do that. So when it goes back on for the last time, we'll be able to just weld them on. So I'll whack it up in the air. So that's all looking exactly how I wanted it now. So it's sort of factory but not. So it's got that sort of Ford feel about it with the dual mufflers, the resonator and the muffler, but obviously flanged now. So I'm sort of really comfortable with what I've done. I'll just tidy up, like I said, the gaskets, work out exactly what bolts I'm going to run, and then that can all come off now and get put into some heat-proof paint. So how good's that look? It's worth just messing about sometimes. So I'm just going to put one coat on this. I've only got one tin of this particular colour here at the moment, the old pressure pack. So I'm just going to give it the one coat. I'll leave the headers in black for now, and then it'll go into storage until I need it next year when we've got some bodywork and stuff done. So pretty happy with the whole look of it though. So there we go. So it's VHT flameproof, and this one's called cast iron. So nice, you know, satiny looking cast iron appearance, but I just love the look of that. I'm really happy with it. I ended up going out and getting another can, so it's got 2 cans, 2 coats, took 2 full cans. It's interesting when you read the instructions, it says you've got 10 minutes between coats and no more than an hour. So fortunately I stayed inside that, otherwise you've got to wait for 7 days before you can recoat it. So this is cast iron. The other one I had was, see that there looks a bit more silver? That's new cast. And this one's cast iron. I think I like the cast iron better. So that can now get put away. We'll hang that up in the container and wait till we get the bodywork done and we can put it back on for the last time. Well, that's a wrap for another episode. So the van, I'm hoping another 12 months probably for me to get it, with everything I'm doing, to get it sort of ready to go. So looking forward, you know, probably look at not this summer, that's the one after. As I do things, I'll keep bringing that to you. In the meantime, we'll be doing more shows, more shed tours. Hope you're enjoying those. And if you haven't done already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just helps us to progress what we're doing. And if you've got any questions, I'll always get back to you. And like, subscribe, all those things. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again sometime soon.